Lingua Brutalica is a podcast that uses ethnographic interviews to study language use in the extreme metal community. We are studying a music scene known for its love of themes and topics generally considered offensive, and it is likely that some episodes will touch on topics or opinions some listeners may find tasteless or ethically problematic. Ethnographic researchers aim to adopt the interviewee's point of view so that we can draw out and study the attitudes, beliefs, and practices that are important to them. We want to make it clear that in presenting these conversations here, we do not endorse any of their content. Our aim is to explore the thought processes behind language use in this long-running, international, and yet understudied scene. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lingua Brutalica with me, Jess Crook, and my co-host, Wes Robertson.
Hello.
Today we'll be chatting to Jason Nitts and Alex Damske of Warforged. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah,
Hello.
of course. Hello. Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Our
So-
voices may not indicate it, but we are very excited.
Awesome. That's a good way to start.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So we usually start off by just getting the bands that we interview to describe their music for someone who hasn't heard it. So could you start us off with that?
Man. It's yeah, I guess. I don't know. Music. It's heavy music that we like to make.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a nice,
It's
simple
very-
definition. Yeah.
our first record is different than our current record. Our first record might be like a weird blend of Opeth and
Yeah, if-
dissonant death metal type shit.
If somebody was like going to ask us, like, what kind of metal do you play? And they need the genreification, I would say maybe a progressive death metal,
Yeah.
progressive death metal leanings of
That's how I'd
that,
wrap it up to.
maybe.
Mm.
It throws a nice broad
But
net
I would
over it.
say, I would hope that by listening to our music that you would get the vibe that you don't know what to expect with song from song. I would hope some people get that out of it, but
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully that's a decent answer to the
Yeah,
question.
that's a great answer,
Yeah.
and leads in
All right,
great
cool.
to our
Yeah.
follow up, which is Encyclopedia Metallum calls you progressive blackened death metal.
Right.
Is that a good description to your ears, or
Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe some of the older stuff, but a lot of
Yeah.
some of the guys don't listen to black metal. Some of the guys do.
It's not
I don't
very-
know.
It's not very
we're
black
not,
and
we're not the
direct.
type that like require you to fit it in a box. We just like
We just
listen to it. And if you dig it, we're down.
want to play cool shit.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know what to
But
it's death metal. That's all
yeah,
you gotta know.
progressive metal. Most of the
Mhm.
time, I just tell people we're a metal band,
Okay.
and
Yeah, especially when you're on tour and you stop at a gas station and some guy in
people don't
Tennessee is like,
know.
"Hey, where are you guys? In a rock band? Yeah, kind of like Metallica." Leave.
Yeah. But I would
Fair
say,
enough.
yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, we're nailing it on the head here with that.
So what got you two into metal, and how did you move into kind of listening to the style of music that you currently make?
Oh man. I think like most people get into metal. I've answered this question so many times. I don't know like the right way to answer it and have it sound as unique, but I guess I don't know, getting into metal at a younger age because it was very exciting music, I feel like. For me, getting into like I was always into prog rock and stuff like that growing up. My dad was into that, and then just getting exposed to like sick, bad new metal bands of Chicago, like Disturbed. Not that I'm
Mhm.
trying to talk shit by any by any means, because I'm not. But I had some Disturbed CDs back in 6th grade. I had some Metallica CDs, some System of a Down, and like the metalhead that gets in from a starting point, you get deeper and deeper into it and find everything. And yeah, I guess kind of got where we are by I don't know, a lot of trial and error with a lot of different people in the band over the years. And but yeah, I think we're kind of at that point where it's like everybody is sort of in that mindset to make like-minded music with one another. How would you answer that, I guess? Or how do you want to answer
Oh, yeah, I
that?
mean, I don't know. I got into I don't know, I got into shit. My cousin would he was into metal. I listened to like, just whatever was on the radio back then. Third Eye Blind was a big band, Vertical Horizon, stuff like that, like late 90s, you know, I was like 8 or 9 years old, so it was like whatever was on, you just like kind of gravitate towards. And then, you know, my older cousin, he's like 6 years older than me, he showed me and my brother like, you know, Metallica and Megadeth and shit, and like I just thought it was cool. Like I don't know, like everyone has like this like exciting like moment of like this like, well, yeah, like I realized it was awesome, and it was just like, I don't know, I kind of liked it, and I just started listening to it, and like you know, it's like then you get like into bands that scream and stuff, and that kind of takes you a second. You know, there was a band called Beyond the Embrace that like really got me into like the screaming vocal stuff. They were a band from Massachusetts that kind of like straddled between like metalcore and like Swedish like melodeath stuff, and you know, they had clean singing and stuff. They had like this kind of James Hetfield style clean singing stuff, but they would also scream. It was kind of like In Flames type screaming shit. So like, you know, it got me into like that stuff. And then I don't know, I think I just like from there, you know, I just like got into more progressive elements of shit. I just really appreciate, the more I played bass and stuff, like the more I appreciated like technicality of music, and you know, that just kind of, you know, brought me on to, you know, just getting into like deeper like extreme music, death metal stuff, fucking progressive music, all that kind of shit, you know. It's like it's never stopped since, really. You know, I don't know, it's that's kind of where it came from, you know. I don't know, just like playing an instrument really makes you appreciate the more I mean, that's what you kind of see when you're like playing an extreme band. It's like when you talk to people that come to your shows, they all play instruments most of the time, you know, or like they have aspirations to be in a band. It's like, that's kind of, I feel like the big fan base is you all just want to play music and challenge yourself, you know. That's kind of where it always leads.
So, I mean, of course, all the bands that we talked to about how they got into metal like refer to the music as kind of the key factor that drew them to the genre. But did the lyrics make a difference to either of you at all when you first kind of got into that style of music?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Big time.
Definitely.
Time. Yeah, because it was like, when I was younger, like in middle school, I really got into like King Diamond and like it's like the concept records that he would do, you know, like almost, I mean, minus a few of them, a lot of his records are concept records. So that was kind of like my big introduction into that world. Because it seems a lot more commonplace, I feel like, in metal more than any other genre of music these days, that you see concept records. Like, because even, I don't know, the music, I would listen to a lot of progressive rock, like Yes, King Crimson. And while they would all have conceptual pieces of music, it wasn't always, you know, the whole record told the story, like Pink Floyd's The Wall or something like that. Right. I just totally lost my train of thought there. Shit, what was the initial question? I was making a point and then I forgot the initial point we were.
Yeah, just like, how did the lyrics like help you get into metal?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you get this. It's like I think there's a certain sophistication along with, you know, you get both sides of the spectrum with metal. You get like very sophisticated style lyrics, and then you get, you know, I'm gonna fucking murder you with, you know. And I'm not saying that that's it. It's not just a black and white thing. There's a lot of stuff in between that. But yeah, I think that was a big part of it for me. I was always attracted to that aspect of heavy music, because I always felt, I think at a younger age too, I felt like there was more to latch onto, because it was like about something, something else that I could, you know, like
yeah, well, I mean, like when we were growing up, it was like the big shit in like middle school was either like you listen to like, you know, emo shit, or like, you know, like that kind of like pop punk stuff in like 2004, or it was like Lil Wayne. Yeah.
For reference,
we're both
30,
born in 91.
So, you know, when we were listening to a lot of metal, My Chemical Romance, Panic at the Disco's popping off.
Yeah, and then like Lil Wayne was really popular.
Lil Wayne,
like, shit like that, where it was like, it was either like you know, like this like really sad music, depressive shit, or it was like
it hadn't come around to the cooler point it's kind of at now, where you see a lot of like new hip hop and newer types of music kind of embracing, whether it's a, you know, purely kind of an aesthetic type of thing from it, or, you know, sonically speaking, you could see more of that stuff kind of bleed over into edges of other styles of music now, which I think is cool. But you know, everybody's got an opinion, right? So
Yeah, it was very much like, you know, when I was, you know, it's like, it was like, yeah, it was like that, the pop punk stuff that was like talking about like, you know, being maybe being sad or like, you know, like I didn't really care about that. And then like the rap stuff that was coming, that was like really big. I didn't like identify with that either. Like, you know, getting, I was like a 13. I didn't identify with getting drunk or like doing drugs. So it was like, but like kids our age did for some reason.
some kids did.
I didn't get it. And like,
I do now.
but yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, but it's like, I would listen to like Dream Theater or Symphony X or something. And
which you could relate to much more.
Well, it didn't, it
that's
didn't have to give me anything to relate to.
Yeah.
It was just like a thing where it was like a
right. It's
kind
not
of an
about
escape
relating
type
to
thing.
it. Yeah.
That, like, I don't really identify with those lyrics now, like those bands
Right.
do, like the fantasy kind of stuff.
But
don't
I
really
think at a younger age, it's easier to attach on to shit like
sick.
that.
Especially like Lord of the Rings was really big at the time. Like,
oh yeah, let's go. Blind Guardian.
Yeah, Blind Guardian was like a big deal for me early
Sweet.
on, and like, and like Lord of the Rings was like a big movie at the time. And like, I kind of really liked that fantasy stuff, and I like something about me just like I attached to it, and like there was like this whole package with some of those bands. Like,
I think there's
progressive
appeal
bands
to
and
it
stuff.
for you know, people that, like Alex was kind of saying, when popular music isn't exactly something you could find yourself attaching to. I think especially at a younger age too, the lyrical content of metal was cool because it is sort of an escape. And it was, to me, I always loved the storytelling aspect of it, and how that was always a big primary focus of a lot of, you know, lyrics of metal songs and metal bands. Yeah, that would be my answer to that question.
It was an interesting, like, kind of, I don't want to call it a contradiction, but something here that I'd like to probe into a bit, which is that you're saying, you know, with the pop punk sad and the rap songs about alcohol and stuff, you couldn't identify with it, but it's not like you could identify with like stories of fighting dragons or like, you know, murdering people either, right? So
no, you can't.
what about like that metal, the lack of identification with metal why was that more attractive lyric wise than the lack of identification with you know,
it's a fantasy. It was
a
like
fantasy.
It's an escape, kind of like what Alex said. It's you're focusing your art on something that is either bigger than you or isn't you. And I think that in a way, it could be very appealing because it sort of kind of gives you a freedom of being like, fuck, this is my take on whatever the fuck the subject matter might be, you know, whether it's something completely original or, you know, I mean, these days it's like there's like metal bands that theme themselves off of video games, movies, TV shows, you know what I mean? It's like they'll take their entire band, all their songs are about Warhammer, or, you know, maybe that's a bad example, but you know what I mean? It's like there's bands that take that route, and I think
Elder Scrolls games,
you know, I think at the time, at least for like at the time that I was listening to more music and that was heavy into that, and I was attracted to more of that music, I think it was because I did like the escape, because it was hard to relate to things sung in a lot of pop songs at the time. And it's funny because it's like we're talking about it, and I, you know, Alex is saying like, yeah, at the time, you know, all these songs about fucking people and doing a lot of drugs and drinking, like we couldn't relate to it because we're, you know, nerdy ass dudes that listen to metal. But it's like now that I'm an adult, I listen to way more music like that because I can relate to it, which is kind of funny how it just comes around that way at a different time in your life.
Which is weird. Yeah, when you're a kid, it's just like whatever gets like thrown at you, you kind of try to like.
Some kids could relate to that.
I
knew kids that did a lot of fucked up shit.
Yeah, right. But I don't know how many of them like related to it, or just like that was maybe their fantasy thing. You know, who knows?
Right? Yeah,
because. Like, but I just know I liked the heavy sound of the.
That's an interesting thing to think about.
You know, but it's like I liked the heavy sound of it, so I kind of just took the lyrics for like what they were. Like I tried to find a way to like. Make them, you know, I try to find a way to like think they were like, you know, it's like
now it's like my favorite shit too.
Metallica's talking about being in a sanitarium, dude, and being crazy. Like you like the music so much, you just try to find a way to relate to the lyrics in some way where you're like, well, this is like really just cool. I mean, I remember like the song "One" by Metallica, like that's, you know, that's a kind of it's not a fantasy, but it's like a war themed song, and I remember that just like I remember that song having like an impact on, like, I don't know, I always thought that, especially with the video where like he's just talking about like having no limbs and not being able to talk and speak. That's like scary shit, you know. And it's like
that's a very conceptual song for Metallica, you know what I mean, especially at the time. There's a lot of focus on that, especially in the video.
And it was just like, I don't know, there was something about that like really got to me, because I just like the music so much that like whatever the lyrics were, it's like when you're that young, it's just like whatever the lyrics are, it's like I'll find a way to fucking
Find a way
like that shit. You know, it's like, because I love the music so much. It's like it's more about the sound than anything, and I think that's always the most important part with like anything with lyrics. It's like you got to make sure the melody or the rhythm of the lyrics is going to be the shit, because that's what makes it good. You know, the lyrics can be the most beautiful thing ever, but if they don't fit the song in any way, it's like, who cares? You know, that's the most important part about lyrics, is they got to fit the song. They got to fit the sound of the song, and they got to fit rhythmically and like melodically into it. And like, you know, the bands I was listening to, Metallica does that so well, because Hetfield writes shit. He writes rhythms and melodies before he writes the lyrics, you know, and it's like he just makes sure that shit fits before he does it. And that's kind of how I felt about it. It's like I'll like it if it like fits well, and if it does, I'll find a way to
more to serve the song rather than to be a focal point. But
content. Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, what were you going to say?
Oh, just, I mean, beyond the question of just kind of rhythm and spacing, though, like content wise, are there times where, like, even though the lyrics fit the rhythm really well, kind of the content of them is disappointing or that you don't vibe with, and that can take you out of a song?
Sometimes.
I think with metal, depending on what you're, I mean, I would say, at least where I'm at as a human being now in my tastes in music, I don't really listen to metal for the lyrical content. I can't relate to a lot of it personally. Some of it I can, but a lot of it these days doesn't really catch my interest as much as lyrics in hip hop, or even some pop music and other genres, where I think there's a little bit more of a focus on it. But I think that, you know, I think that it's sort of like a malleable thing in a way, where it's like you could really, I mean, you can write a song like that. You could write a song starting with lyrics. We did that, you know, like there's so many different ways you could really interpret it and really base what you want to communicate, what you want to do with your song. I just feel that I don't know. I think it's more interesting to be on the experimental side of that and try to lean into it rather than just sort of like serve the lyrics as an afterthought, because I'm not trying to say that a lot of bands don't think about it, but I think with metal, you know, like you guys were saying, a lot of people get into it based on the musicianship, the extremity of the musicianship, and lyrics can sometimes be looked at as an afterthought, you know, and then you get your bands that are, and I'm not knocking it, but you know, you get your legacy bands, your legacy death metal bands that, you know, pump out a record, you know what you're going to get, you know what kind of lyrical content you're going to get on, like a Cannibal Corpse record. It's like, what do you think you're going to get listening to that? You think you're going to get one about fucking hearing a story about Frank Sinatra smoking a blunt? Probably not. You're probably gonna, I don't know what you would listen to get that, but I'm just saying, for example,
a Warforged record. We'll talk about that.
I think no, we maybe
sick, though,
but
yeah, maybe the next one.
Yeah, I just think that it's an underutilized element of metal in certain aspects, and I wish sometimes there would be more of a push on it in other ways. Personally, that's how I felt about it in recent years in heavy music, and I feel that it can sometimes be an afterthought for people, whether it's, you know, because of the fact that it's screaming. You know, when you're talking about extreme death metal or black metal, you know, a lot of those vocal styles, it's like, I'm not going to show that to my grandma and she's going to be like, yo, hit that motherfucking repeat button right now. You know, she's going to be like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I think that in itself is a big turnoff to a lot of people. Obviously, you know, people like us who listen to the genre, you know, we love it. But to a lot of people, it's not the most attractive part of the style of music. And I think because of that, and because of how it's looked at as an afterthought in certain aspects, sometimes it might not be the focal point. And then you look at bands that like to write, or maybe preferentially like to write conceptually, let's say. I think sometimes lyrics can change in the sense where they're written to serve a bigger, you know, they're written to serve a story and paint a picture rather than, you know, basically what I'm saying, the intent could be about anything, really. But I feel like, at least based on my experiences in heavy music, I know more people that are definitely more down with the instrumentation and focus on that rather than the lyrical aspect of it so much. But that's my experience. I also do know a few people who fucking, obviously love the lyrical side of it and really get down with it.
There's certain people that are really into the fantasy element or like the gore element of stuff that, I don't necessarily get down with. I like, more down to earth kind of shit. But yeah, there's definitely like that sort of appeal with metal guys. But like, I think, by and large, it's like mostly metal guys are listening to shit for the musical content rather than the lyrical content. I think a lot of times.
It's interesting you say that. Yeah, because one of the things that like I think that kind of a dichotomy that's like stretched across a lot of episodes for us is between people who have kind of had that lyrical approach where the vocals are more of a percussive instrument, and so lyrics are more like decoration that you add on top of like, the music. On the other hand, though, we've also had people like Aaron Carey from Nachachuan who have written basically like books, to accompany their songs and stuff.
That's sick. That band is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But see, that's like a band that like writes music to serve such a greater purpose than just like whatever the fuck me and him are talking about. Guaranteed. I can't. That's awesome. They were on your show. I didn't know that. I'll actually probably be going back and listening to that episode.
Well, you don't think any lyrics are therapeutic in a way?
I think they can be for sure. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I think big time, depending on where you're coming from with it, it could definitely be very therapeutic.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's more of like a metalcore, hardcore thing, though. I feel like a lot, and sometimes
what the therapy is and what you're writing about.
Yeah,
what the angle is,
and sometimes that shit is like, like I think like a lot of our new record, Sundial, coming out September 9th. A lot of what like we wrote on that lyrically was it's a lot more personal stuff, but there is like a weird thing where I feel like you do have to like when you try to like a lot of the stuff, but some of it was a little bit different based on other
you guys are the first people that have had the lyrics other than us. So
all the lyrics.
New record. Yeah, I sent you guys the whole fucking thing and all the so I don't know. I'm more curious to hear what you guys think. That's me.
But there's a weird thing with like when you're writing personal lyrics where you have to like balance out what you're comfortable with sharing and what you're like I don't know.
For you?
Yeah, I feel like just in general, like I mean for me for sure.
I definitely don't.
Because I feel like I feel like it's a weird thing if like you write something that's you're maybe not sure about, but it feels honest, but you got to think about like, well, do I want people? But it's like, do you want people to hear
based
that?
On my
if I'm gonna play that song every night, like, do I want to hear that?
Tell my fucking secrets.
Yeah, right.
You don't throw my fucking secrets.
It's
like fucking night.
Do you want to hear that every night? It's like, do you want to hear? Do you want to hear the lyrics?
Reminded how much of a piece of shit I am every night.
Well, that's actually
true. And that's not what I'm saying.
It's true, but it's true though. I mean, there is a song, the first single on this record is kind of that. It's like, well, I was very like open and honest about that, and it's like, do I want to like? I mean, I'm fine with it, I guess. I gotta be. It's already printed, So like, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like if you get too personal on something, like there's a thing as in like a musician where it's like, well, am I comfortable with this? And like, I think most of the time it's like, even if you are uncomfortable with it, you should just go ahead and do it anyway. Because that's better. That's better for like, I mean, that's more compelling most of the time. If you're uncomfortable with what you said, because it's like honest about some,
it's probably a good sign. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also like, you got to like listen to it every night. You got to be like, should I have said that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
But
that actually leads to kind of a question we had about the whole writing process here before we jump into some of the more lyrics more specifically, because you two both wrote this album, but you don't sing it. And so we're wondering, like, is it
some of it?
Okay.
Alex does co-vocals with her vocalist Tim. He does some screaming, and Alex does all the singing on the record.
Oh, really? Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, all right, but still, there are times where you've written, what seem to be quite, I don't know if they're personal, but feelings or stories, and then kind of handing them off to someone else. Like, is there an awkwardness in writing a lyric like I'm a fat fucking mess and I'm dirty as shit, and saying, hey,
well, that's why we had to
go on stage and say this,
we had to get a fat guy that was dirty to sing that. So
we're all fat guys and we're all dirty, so it's kind of relatable to
we're all 2 bills plus, so fuck it,
Yeah. 2 bills.
Yeah, 2 bills, bro.
We're in the 200 club in this band.
Hell yeah, man. But yeah, it is kind of a weird thing. I like definitely that was a line that's kind of what I was talking about. Is like that line is kind of like, do I really want to say that?
You want to know what I was thinking when I first heard that line? How the fuck are metal fans gonna take that?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that too.
There's so many people that'll look at a line like that and think we're not taking our band seriously. There's been plenty of people who look at that line specifically and they're like, what the fuck is this band singing about? And not take a second to think like, oh, wait a minute. We're singing about us, you know. It's like singing about once in our band's history,
singing about drinking
something different,
singing about drinking every day and waking up and feeling like a piece of shit.
I feel like that song is when I think of that song, I think of Vice. I think it represents human vice. I think it represents.
It's supposed to sound dirty.
You know, you look at the song named "Bliss Joined to the Bane," which is, you know, the feeling of bliss joined to something that's a bane to your fucking existence, like drugs or alcohol or whatever the fuck, something that's not good for you.
Specifically about alcohol. I don't do any illegal drugs.
Yeah, you do with me, and we definitely done illegal drugs. We have done illegal drugs, and we're keeping record of that.
We're cool.
Here.
Yeah, we're cool.
But yeah, I think it's. I always think it's. When Alex wrote that whole song, Bliss Joined to the Bane, and he showed it to me after we had gone to a place and talked about lyrical ideas. And I thought it was a cool one. And when he showed me the lyrics, I was like, yeah, these are fucking incredible. And I like him because I think it's kind of like a satirical tongue-in-cheek take on human vice. Yeah. When I think about it. And I don't think
snarky a lot of, in a way.
Yeah. There's a little bit of, there's definitely humor in the song.
In a way,
self-deprecation,
it's cool,
too, which is a very common thing, I feel, in metal, big time, especially with a lot of metal musicians who hate themselves after they play a sick show and think they fucked up.
Every dude ever, dude.
Notes or whatever. You know, it's just kind of like different. I think the aim was to, you know, it was to be a little different, just try and do something different.
Yeah, I mean, like I have so I do like my own solo music under a moniker, The False Reality. And like when I do lyrics with that, it's not metal stuff. It's like kind of, you know, rocky kind of shit. And I
rock and roll lyrics.
Yes, rock and roll lyrics. Yeah, but that kind of shit. But not really. But I write kind of like sarcastic-y kind of lyrics, like stream of conscience, just like kind of funny, kind of stupid, just like whatever I want to say, I'm just gonna say it. And like when it came down to write this record and we were writing the lyrics, like everyone was like, dude, we should like kind of do some shit like that. And I was like, that would be kind of weird, but I'm down. Like, cause I don't really know how to write lyrics any other way. I'm not like, every time I've ever tried to write lyrics before, I've always tried to do some sort of like, you know, political or historical or fantasy angle that I didn't really like ever feel comfortable with. And now it's like that I can do it. It's like, oh, like that is sick to have that freedom to be like, well, I want to just like stream of conscience these lyrics and just like kind of go for it, not think too hard about it, maybe write one draft and then just revise it and then that's it. It's just like just stream of conscience, what's the good rhythm for this, and then just like do it, you know. I think that's the best way to do it. Just like not try to think about it too much. Just like, what do you want to say? If you're gonna say it, just say it. Don't pussyfoot around it. Just say what you want to say.
Just do it, though.
Just fucking do it.
Alex Damske, you know just fucking do it. Just, what the fuck are you talking about?
I'll make you a just fucking pizza. Fucking do it.
I'll make you a fucking song. You're gonna know what I'm fucking talking about.
I'm a straight shooter.
I agree with that, and I disagree with it in a way where I disagree.
Yeah, Jason writes lyrics a lot.
All different kinds of ways you could do it, I think. But I tried to just run the gamut. But anyway, we're not trying to take this over. So
no. It's good that you said that, because like our next question was going to be about like how you write lyrics for songs that are typically a lot longer than those that we've seen on this podcast so far. So I think like most of your songs are probably the longest that we've seen, other than some of those written by Thronehammer. With the shortest song on your album, I think is like over 6 minutes long. So are there challenges that come from writing lyrics for songs that are that long?
Is that on Sundial?
Well, that would have been probably our first record, Voice. Yeah, because that was all our old vocalist.
Yeah,
Adrian
when Adrian
that wrote those.
Adrian wrote a lot of the lyrics to our first record, Voice, which is a concept record. And that was a record that Adrian and I had initially talked a lot about the concept and formulated it out of our EP, Essence of the Land, where it sort of connects. we wanted to kind of keep the same embodiment of that, but come up with a concept. And those, the way that album was written, especially the longer songs, like there's songs that are 12 minutes long, songs that are 8 minutes long, something like that. The lyrics came the lyrics on that record, I would say, were directly to serve the concept. They were written to serve the music. They were written to serve the musical motifs of the concept and the story. So there's a lot of songs. I mean, there's the lyrics are definitely more sparse on that record, I feel, because it's a lot more, and the vocal style is a lot more atmospheric, big, echoey, big emphasis on long drawn out words. And Adrian had kind of a minimalistic approach when writing a lot of lyrics, which I liked because it was very succinct and it got the message across and it got what the feeling was across for that record. But I mean, we just, once Adrian had left the band, a conscious effort that I wanted to try on this record was just to, you know, I think the whole idea was like, nothing's off limits. Let's try a bunch of different things out. So there were songs where I would write lyrics before putting them to any music. I would have a full song of lyrics. There were songs where I wrote the lyrics specifically to the music, and wrote all the patterns myself. And there's so many crazy stories behind like every single song on this record. Lyrically speaking, that I think, I don't know. I mean, we could talk about them. We're planning on doing it. We're going to go in depth and talk about every single song on the record at some point and release it under, through the band and whatnot.
Sick.
But yeah, it was sort of like, I think when it comes to writing a 6 and like this on this album, what's the longest song that's 6 minutes? Is it the
like,
last song?
It's
or is it
Painted Heart, or it's
Painted
Heart's the longest song. It's like 7 minutes, I think.
Right.
And that's with like a long outro.
Musical breaks in that song, so that eats up some time. But like the 6 minute, like No Land Man, the first song on our record, I wrote all the lyrics for that based on like
that was rhythmically
an idea and a rhythm that I had. I woke up I was baked out of my fucking mind. I was in bed with my girlfriend at like 3 a.m, and me and Alex had been going back. It was like the last kind of lyrical piece to the puzzle we needed for the record, and Alex and I kept going back and forth, and I don't know, nothing was really like sticking to it. Nothing was really like, it's like a first song on a record. It's got to be a powerful song. It's got to be there has to be an emphasis on it.
And we had the title.
The title was cool.
Yeah, we had that title before we had the lyrics, so we were trying to write to the title.
And it was really hard at first until I started coming up with these themes, and all of a sudden it just started clicking, and I had actually come over here where we're at now, our guitar player Max's place, Alex's brother, to do pre-production drums on that track. And I got back. And so the song was like really in my head, like the rhythms were in my head. I had fully digested the track. So then I started writing lyrics to the rhythm, and I was like, oh, what? I could do this. Like, and lyrically, I think it's like some of the best shit that I did on the record, because it got everything I wanted to across. It touched on everything I wanted to, and it's like it's a super wordy fucking song. There's so many lyrics in that song, and we got fucking Jordan from Disentomb, an Australian band,
nice,
guest vocals on that track, and it was I don't know, I love that song, but it was really fun because I looked at that song because it's funny you bring up that it's like a 6 minute song, and I remember thinking like, how the fuck are we gonna write lyrics? What the fuck are the lyrics gonna be? What the fuck are we gonna come up with like 6 minutes worth of lyrics? And then when I got going on that song, it was basically like I had to cut out shit. It was sort of like I had so many ideas for it and so many different lines that I loved that I was just sort of like, fuck, this is like, it was like this endless fucking just like stream that kind of funneled its way into like, okay, I'm picking the best of what makes the most sense to kind of serve the song rather than trying to just kind of shove it in there just to prove the point rather. So it's sort of like,
that's a hard process.
It's sort of
too.
Kind of what we were saying were like the difference between the first record and this record, where it's like writing lyrics to fit a story and for that to be the main point you want to get across, where it's like, this is what needs to be said. We need to manipulate everything to find a way to make that be the point, as opposed to us kind of taking a song and now being like, fuck that. we want to make this song a fucking banger. How do we make the lyrics serve that? How do we make the lyrics serve the song to be like, oh, this is a fucking line someone's going to remember. This is something, a catchy thing somebody might remember, you know, sort of trying to serve the song a little bit more.
Yeah, like every
to
song,
make it more musical.
Every song kind of has like on the new record, every song kind of has like a punchline in it in a way where you like, there's like a line in every song that we have on the new record that like kind of sums up what the song's about, you know,
In a way.
Yeah, there's like I don't know, punchline is probably not the right
Alex
word.
has a sheet of all those lines.
Yeah, right.
Where are they?
Yeah.
I don't know what they would be.
Yeah, it's the fucking Alex dossier, dude.
Yeah,
That's my dossier, bro.
Yeah, I think in this, like,
but it was definitely, yeah, I agree with that. It was more like that, where it was like the lyrics were definitely more of a not a forefront, but like they were definitely more thought of, I feel, in a way. Like instead of like trying to serve a story, it was more just like every song is treated in a like
every song was
microscopic.
different. Every song, it's sort of a different piece when you're writing non-conceptually, which I think was sort of exciting because it gave us grounds to try just a bunch of different ideas. Because I think like, oh man, I expect this to come up a lot whenever we're going to be talking about the new stuff, and it's something I've been trying to like figure out how to word. But I feel like with metal, something that hasn't kind of been explored as much is the idea of how much can you do as a band? How far can you take a metal band? What can a metal band do? Staying grounded as a metal band, but how far can you really take that idea? You know, what can we try to be like? We're still a band, but we're taking this in a completely different context, as opposed to where a lot of, I feel like, lyrics come in metal, you know, maybe they're secondary, maybe it's like a concept, maybe, you know, they're, instead of like serving something bigger than your band, what if you try to write lyrics that like accentuate your band? What if you try to write lyrics that live in the now and sort of like embody who you are as people a little bit more than necessarily trying to serve something bigger? And there's still a little bit of that on our record. I mean, there's songs that I had written that are definitely inspired by certain films I like. There's a song that takes heavy inspiration from The Sopranos, all kinds of shit. But you know, it's not just about that specifically. It's not like Tony Soprano came into the fucking room with the gun and shot him. It's like, you know, it's not like I'm feeding it to you. It's just, you know, loose inspiration that kind of like funnels its way into your music. As opposed to just being like, I need to write this about fucking something that somebody else made. It's like, I think it's more fun to kind of take that and fuel it for inspiration for your own ideas. It's like, yo, you're getting us, which is us, as opposed to you're getting us, which is us telling you about something else. You know, it's like, we're never going to be a band that's going to write a song about Cthulhu, because it's like, what? First off, there's about a billion other bands that will do that way better than us. And there's also a billion bands that have just, and I'm not knocking it, and I'm not trying to, you know, say that I think that that's like something you shouldn't do, but it's just something to me where I'm just like, fuck, how many times are I, as an artist, I have no desire to try and touch something that has already been so, you know, rehashed by so many different artists at this point. I think it's kind of fun to take sort of things that are not your stereotypical metal subjects and try and repurpose them in a metal way. Or, you know, vice versa, try to take a lyrical subject that's not metal at all and like find a way to fit it in a metal song. It's so exciting to me. It's really exciting. Like, you know, like you take a song like the last single we just released, Sheridan Road, which I literally wrote all of those lyrics, not to the song, handed the lyrics to Alex, to where the song was written in a way where it is a genuine stream of consciousness, and you could kind of take the lyrics and readjust them wherever you would want. It doesn't have to be this one linear journey of a song. And it's so exciting to just be like, fuck, like, you know, never just discovering all of these new ways to really come up with cool, different music for us has really been a cherishing reward. I would say. But my favorite part of the process. So
And I would love to write a metal song, like an R&B style song about like fucking. I think that would be
We will one day. We're gonna do it.
I want to find a way to do that so bad.
We're
I think that's
saying
like
it here, but we're actually gonna do it.
That's such a fucking like that's uncharted territory.
I agree. It is uncharted territory.
You know?
But
nobody does that unless it's about like a corpse fucking.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you write a song about making love? You know what I mean?
That'd be so sick.
Dude, we'll do it. We're gonna do it.
Well, speaking of things that people haven't done, one thing that we noticed that was kind of interesting in looking at the lyrics of the first album is that like the lyrics are written like a novel, not in the way that there's a story. Like there are albums out there that tell stories, but they're full sentences with like subjects. Like the lyrics, all at once the lights carried from a distance shot to me, flowing through me, flashing before me, violent, convulsing, bright. I was haggard but unworn. I was youthful but bitter. I was ignorant. I was worldly. I was shown into a lifetime's experiences. The flashes pulsed away, left me sitting on the damp forest floor. Gold light poured through the trees above and danced across tufts of mist and thriving, and so on and so on. Like every single sentence had a clear grammatical subject. They're all full sentences. And they kind of, again, read like you could put it in a book. The new album also has a very, poetic storytelling feel, but with lines like, I'm like the steaming pot at the crack of dawn, temper at 100 degrees, the blood starts to clot, boiling inside, caught in the chain. Today, I think I'll take a brick and throw it on the highway. There's obviously relation there and a sequence of events, but it's not like the complete sentences thing before. Do you know with the first album, was there a conscious desire to write it like a book? And I guess on the second album, was there a desire to kind of move away from that style into something that is still obviously storytelling and poetic, but without the kind of like, you could read this and follow the narrator kind of fully sort of style?
Yeah, I mean, the song you had quoted, We've Been Here Before, from the first record, lyrically that was all written by Adrian. And when it came to coming up with the lyrical style for that record, it was never said that we intentionally wanted to write it like a book per se. Like that wasn't the direct reference, rather than more of sort of like an atmospheric angle. So it's like the lyrics are sort of more of a description of where you are, what you're seeing, really like it's sort of more immersion rather than like this motherfucker came up to me and told me I was a vampire or whatever the fuck. I'm just going off the top of my head right now. You know what I mean? Rather than
that's the first freestyle I've got on the podcast.
The music. Oh, I'll get you better ones by the end of this. But I think the way the music was presented in that record, contextually and conceptually, is very atmospheric, and the lyrical direction was definitely intended to kind of reflect that more. So that might be why it's more like reading a book, because you're really getting immersed in what's around you. And We've Been Here Before, specifically, that song is a very atmospheric song lyrically, as much as it is kind of like the igniter of that record. But when it came to shifting on the I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say the first record didn't have any focus really on rhyming and shit. Like we definitely did more of a concerted effort to like try to do that on this record, like make it more like vocals in the forefront, like sing-songy type of,
like we had said before.
The
lyrics were written to fit the concept, as opposed to try and serve the point of being lyrics, rather, if that makes sense. Like obviously they serve the point of being lyrics. That doesn't make sense, but they were sort of written more in a sense to serve the purpose rather than to be something else that's highlighted in the song, just as much as like a sick riff or a sick drum fill or whatever you want to hear in a metal track. It's like, why can't the lyrics be just as fucking hard? Like why can't the lyrics be just as fucking like, now it's sort of written, I like it in a way. Well, I mean, there's a huge contrast between the lyrical direction, I would say, between the first record and the second record, and being that we didn't want to write music necessarily lyrics to fit a concept, rather than to be like, hey, let's push those boundaries as far as Warforged goes and see what we can do as a band. It's sort of like, what can we do as a band lyrically? What are some different ideas, rather than writing about sitting on your ass in a forest? Not that I'm knocking it. It's our own fucking lyrics, and I love that album. But I think the big inspiration came from a lot of other. For me, it's just sort of like, I love those types of bands that they really push the boundaries of what it is to be a band, like the 1975 or Radiohead or Brockhampton or these bands that kind of take more of an approach of like, you listen to a Radiohead album, you're going to get some Radiohead, but you don't know what the fuck exactly you're going to get from them. Sometimes you listen to a song and it's like, am I still listening to the same band? But you are, and it's so sick that you get to see this other side of them. And I mean, we're at the end of the day, every person that makes music is a person, and every person has more than one side to them. And I think, a big focus of the lyrics on this record was just to not be so one-sided and try and take some more, just trying to roll the dice more. It's sort of like, what can we write about? How can we do it differently? What are some different ideas we can try? It's just like, fuck it. Like, you're going to get Warforged, but you're not just going to get what you expect out of us. You're going to get, a little bit of everything, I would say, or a little bit of twists and turns from what you might be expecting. But I don't know, it's kind of like you have to take a second and be like, yeah, we're just a band that has one album out and an EP and another album that's about to come out. It's like, we live in the world probably more than anybody else, at least definitely. As far as like overanalyzation. So to us, we're like, this is such a giant change. And then,
right.
I think sometimes we can even get lost in that and being like, people really even give that much of a fuck, or are people just down? So I don't know, but everybody's different. Obviously, everybody listens to music differently, and has different expectations, maybe, or maybe none at all.
I mean, speaking of like pretty massive changes, one of the other very obvious differences between the lyrics of the two albums is the use of swearing. Across both albums, you do use the words like fuck, fucker, or motherfucker 8 times, shit 7 times, and damn, if we consider that a swear word, twice. So all but one of these, a use of shit in the line shit out again, pass through the swamp's billowing gut, are on the new album. So yeah, was this shift towards the use of swear words intentional? Was it part of this kind of effort to adopt a different approach in this new release?
We never set out to fucking swear more, but I think we just both love to swear.
I think it's just
kind
of came out with what it is like,
because it feels good.
You guys have quoted the first song from the No Land Man. No Land Man is like thematically, it's a whole bunch of ideas that I kind of had floating around, fused together. And it sort of just tells the story about this deranged ass dude. It's a death metal song. It's a song about a dude that finds relief and peace in causing horrible things to happen. So it's like, it's about bass and really like the essence of, lyrically, of what I wanted to get across in that song is just like, when you feel like you're at your breaking point, when you feel like you're at that point in your life where you don't have another inch to give, and it's just sort of like, you feel the weight of a lot of shit coming on top of you. And I think that that's something that a lot of people can relate to, as a feeling of sort of being at that edge, being at that boiling point. And, I don't know. I think in a way, I hope that song kind of comes across of like, maybe people listening to it and being like, oh, fuck, like, I'm not insane for feeling like this. Motherfuckers feel like this all the time. Even though that song is about a dude that like does a bunch of crazy ass shit. But, it came from the ideas of, there was some influence. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but it's a band favorite, Falling Down with Michael Douglas. Big influence on, a dude snapping and, taking over a fast food restaurant with a gun, or just, blowing up a construction site with thick rimmed glasses on. Another influence was like the scene. Have you guys ever seen the David Lynch movie Lost Highway before?
I've not, no.
Well, there's a fucking crazy ass scene with Robert Blake, who's a crazy motherfucker in real life. Like, this dude isn't. He killed his wife, I think, or he was like.
Yeah, he got charged with it at least. I don't know if he did it, but
he definitely, motherfucker, definitely. You watch this movie, and watch what he does, and you'll be like, yeah, you fucking did it.
Okay.
But there's just a really weird David Lynch-esque scene in that movie where he goes up to the lead character, who's played by Bill Putnam, right? Bill Putnam.
No, Bill
Pullman. There we go.
Yeah.
Bill Putnam from Anal Cunt. Yeah, Seth Putnam.
Yeah,
Sorry.
The guy from
around
Grind
here.
That was in that band.
But yeah, he goes up to him and he hands him a phone, and the guy's like, I'm inside your house. But there's a lyric about being inside someone's house and waiting to beat the fuck out of them, which is a thing that happens to people sometimes. You don't hear a lot about it in metal, but it's like a rational fear that could happen to you if you owe somebody some money, or if not that either of us have ever been there, but like, you know, I don't know, kind of influence of like, that's something shitty and evil and dark in this world, but it's like, you don't really hear about it as much in songs. You hear more about like the mystical evils, and this is like, it's sort of like the evil of like getting up in the fucking morning, you know. It's like domesticated evil in a way, where it's like
the swear words like bring it into the domesticated realm in a way that like
maybe in a way where it's sort of like I think the swear words came out because it's more of like a raw emotion, where it's sort of like the swear words are there to convey like whatever it's there to convey the feeling that we're trying to portray, I would say.
It's just fun to swear to.
Yeah.
It feels good when you're doing aggressive shit. Like I remember Periphery 2. Remember when that album came out? And like
the most heavy record of all time.
Well, it's not that. It's just Spencer. I don't really care for his lyrics that much. I don't really like pay attention to him really. But like, I remember like Periphery 1, which was a big deal for me. Had like not really a lot of swearing on it. Then Periphery 2 came out. He would say "fuck," "motherfucker," yeah, all this crazy, like, you know, all these swears and shit. And I was like, ooh, that's like kind of weird. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, why does it, like, I don't know, adults swear. You hang around people, you swear, like you just say fuck and shit and like dick and damn, and like, I don't know what the big deal is. It's like, if you're playing aggressive music, you should be saying fuck and shit. It just feels natural to like just to swear. I don't know, it just feels good. It feels right. It feels right to put swears in like aggressive music.
So what about a song like Self-Destruct Seminar, where you close with the line, go find contentment, see what happens, fuck? Like what's the goal of the final, what's the goal with like ending a song on just the word fuck?
That fuck was written in studio.
Yeah, that was an in studio fuck.
We just wanted it because it sounded heavy.
It's just hard. And like that line in general, that whole song is about just like just people.
Another Alex song. Alex
this is my lyrics. It's like it's a critique on like Instagram or Facebook self-help type shit, where like people talk about like self-love or like self-help or just like trying to better yourself. But like it's like interesting to think, like, if you start in a place where like, I don't know, like if you start in a place where you're like, I want to be a better person, but you're like a shithead, like aren't all your like intentions to become a better person just like self-serving? And it's kind of like that way where it's like you're trapped in this like place where you can't, like, any move you make, because you're so far gone into like just being like selfish and shitty. Any attempt you make to like break out of that is going to be like an attempt to become like more of a manipulative, like shitty person. So it's like, when I say go find contentment, see what happens, it's like, yeah, go find it. Like, it's not gonna, you're already gone, dude. Like, you're not gonna find any shit there. And it's like, I don't know, that's kind of what that song's about. It's just like, you don't,
the destructive side of self-help.
Yeah, it's like
very much there.
It's like so much
sometimes,
of that,
not all of it, but sometimes.
Yeah, but so much of it, I feel like on Instagram, it's like since Instagram and like Facebook is like based on kind of narcissism in a way, it's like, it's not like gonna lead you into any place that's
weird.
good.
I remember, like,
you know,
it's like an experience of I don't know. I'm not, won't reference who the person is, not that it even matters or anybody would know, but like, you know, it's like you're on Instagram and you see somebody that has a picture in a flaming hula hoop with like, you know, Givenchy $30,000 sunglasses on, and you look at them and they're an influencer, and you're just, and it's not like fuck the Kardashians, fuck that. It's not that type of approach. It's just sort of just like, yeah, motherfucker, they're having a good time because they're in $30,000 sunglasses and they have a fucking flaming hula hoop around them. Like, of course they're having a good life. They're not showing you like, the times that they've fucked up explicitly on the internet. They're not showing you the times that they've gotten DUIs. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not going to see like the negative side of their lives on a platform where they have full control over it. It's just like, you know, it's funny in a way where it's sort of like, yeah, you know, what the fuck you're gonna put, you know, unless you're like,
go find contentment, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like, you're not gonna, if you're looking at it that way,
if you're always searching, for it, you're not gonna. If you're always searching for like some kind of like happiness or contentment, or like a way to be like, now I'm the perfect person, now I'm finally complete, it's like, you're not gonna get there. You'll see what happens. Like you're gonna.
It's a take on it. It's a take on the. It's an Alex Damske analogy of the human psyche.
Look, drunkenness.
What I would
drunkenness is a very underrated drug to be like, people get high, or they smoke weed, or they
people, as in me and Alex, smoke weed.
Yeah, people smoke weed, or people take mushrooms like to expand their consciousness. The alcohol is maybe not consciousness expanding, but the take that you can get from shit on alcohol is
definitely
underrated.
Wacky.
No, it's underrated as far as like being drunk.
So we're basically telling
being
you
drunk is a wisdom.
Sick.
Yeah, being drunk is there's a wisdom in it though.
Yeah, okay.
There's a wisdom in it, and that's what
wisdom?
that song. That's drunken
wisdom.
Yeah, like, drunken wisdom.
The only wisdom I've ever seen from a drunk man is the movie The Drunken Master with fucking.
Yeah, and he was wise as hell, bro. He was kicking ass.
Yeah, he does.
So like this idea of takes, right? That a lot of these songs are kind of takes, be they drunken or sober or whatever.
That one specifically.
I feel like
that one specifically
Alex
being
songs,
drunken.
Alex songs are a lot of takes.
Okay.
I feel like your songs are a lot of takes.
Just that one. Really.
Alex is a very social. You think so?
Yeah, I don't think Bliss is a take. I don't think Burning Days is a take.
Yeah, I guess Burning Days isn't really.
Burning Days is just about being fucking trying to take control of your shit. Yeah.
Self-destruct.
Well, all right, maybe
I would say is definitely
that's the hardest take on the record. 100%.
Maybe a take isn't the right term for everything, but we did notice that you mentioned earlier that some of these songs are very personal. You said that some of them arise from kind of the opinions you have. And we noticed that like across both your albums, actually, despite different authors, you use a lot of first-person perspective. The new album, in fact, uses the word "I" over 50 times. So what kind of brought you into? Is it because they are these kind of you wanted to make this record personal that this kind of happened, or was there something conscious? Like, what do you think brings you both to use "I" so often? And while on that, is "I" you?
Wait, is this the first record or the second record?
Both. But there's 50 on the second album. There's 50 eyes.
Oh hell yeah!
Well,
over 50. Sorry.
I think writing narratively is like easier than any. I that's mainly the reason. I think I don't know if it was like conscious, but it's just the way I would write. I don't know what you would think, but like I think just like writing narratively is a lot easier.
You're singing a song to somebody. It's like I feel like to a certain degree, sometimes metal conceptual, and I'm not trying to say that it's the only way to do it, but sometimes I read metal lyrics and it's like, it's so literal that I'm just like, what the fuck is like, I don't want to be, I'm not trying to read a book. I want to hear like a song. I don't want to be like, the dragon picked up this motherfucker and dropped him off at school. Bad example. I'm being humorous, but like, sometimes I'll read a concept record and it's literally like the man walked in the room, man, he ate a fucking dish and then he did this, and it's like I don't know. I feel like when it comes from the narrative perspective and the first person perspective in certain instances, especially on the new record, it kind of gives the listener a little bit more ambiguity to kind of it makes the lyrics more digestible in a personal sense, I feel like, because you're able to analyze the songs in a way where it's like, all right, this is coming from somebody's perspective. And it gives you more of, I think it kind of gives it more of a more open-endedness to kind of like to kind of open up the door and have something more up for interpretation rather than a direct idea that you might need to take out of the song. Right? Like us providing like, you need to get this out of the song. Like, when Alex and I write lyrics, sure, we definitely have intentions of what we're trying to write about or what we're trying to say. But I think that at the end of the day, I used to I remember there was a part of me, years ago where I always loved digging into lyrics, finding out what songs are about, finding out what concept records are about, anything. And I always used to hate when artists would just be like, oh, it's up to your interpretation. I'm like, that's fucking lazy ass shit. But now I look at it and I'm like, no, it's not. That's like awesome, because I get it. I get what it's like to want to say something and want to put it out on paper. Everybody can interpret that in so many different ways. And I think not having something so direct and more digestible in more of a sense where it's subjective, I think just makes it more interesting, and it might make it a little bit more different perceptively, because that first record has so many eyes, because the story is told from first person perspective about, and it's pretty much about a main character. And this album, there's songs about characters. No Landman is about a character. Place That Breaks Your Bones is about a character. Another song I wrote, which was, it's about a character. It's told from a first person perspective, about, and it's pretty much just about unrequited love. It's about love love you can't have, in a way. It was written while I was watching The Sopranos during the pandemic, which is my favorite show of all time. It's probably on like the 5th watch through. There's an arc in one of the seasons where Tony, the main character, is cheating on his wife with this girl that he falls in love with, who's a car saleswoman, and he like falls head over heels from her. He meets her in his therapist's office. It turns out she's like massively suicidal. They're very unhealthy for each other. It's just this whole crazy thing. I won't give it all away here, but the idea, when I kind of took out, I did, like, the song is not about Tony Soprano or this person. It just kind of, I got the theme from it from watching that, of like, here's a character who is married and has the domesticated family, the love that you would expect from your average American, any family. You got your wife, you have your kids, they live in a rich ass fucking house in Jersey and have anything they want. And here he is pining after another woman. That ultimately, when you're in a monogamous marriage, you can't just go out and fuck anybody you want or be in another relationship with a person. It doesn't necessarily work out that way. And it's interesting to me, because I think it's a theme that you see a lot in, whether it's any in a TV show or a movie. And it's kind of like managing those feelings of just like, what can love really be? What can it really expand to? Like, can you find your soulmate and still find yearning for somebody else? I think it's a feeling that certain people could relate to. And I think it's something that's really just not discussed a lot in metal. Maybe it is, and I just don't know, but at least in the kind that we play, I don't see it a lot. And it really just kind of inspired me to make this whole song about it, because it's sort of like this, the song is written sort of in this perspective of like a dance between these two characters, because Tony in the show has this dream sequence about dancing with this woman, because she ends up killing herself, because Tony and her have this big blowout after they realize they can't be in a committed relationship because he's fucking married. And great show. Have you guys ever seen the fucking Sopranos? The fucking Sopranos over here.
Hey, them fucking Sopranos.
I recommend that you guys check it out.
All right.
Okay, cool.
I mean, do you tell these stories to the singer of your band before you pass the lyrics off?
I mean,
you definitely told
Does he know? Does he know that the song is about the Sopranos?
Yeah, I think he knows it's influenced by it. Okay. Yeah, we've definitely talked about him. I think when Tim initially came out, because we started writing a lot of these songs for the band for the second album before Tim was even in the band. And we had kind of, we kind of wanted to be prepared for whatever our next move was musically. Like, we wanted to have songs ready to go. So we were like, fuck it, we're doing it live, like Bill O'Reilly does in the Freak Out YouTube
doing
video.
It live, fuck it.
But, me and Alex were like, let's get what we want out of this and let's fucking give it a shot. And that's how the lyrics came to be about. And yeah, Tim is definitely like, Tim loves the lyrics from what we've been told. What I've been told is that Tim is a big fan, and he did seem pretty genuinely into them when we were tracking them. And we're planning on, trying to have Tim acclimate a little bit more lyrically to our band as well, because we haven't written lyrics with Tim yet. So that's a plan that we're actually working on
next
now,
release for sure. Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know. I think the narrative thing is definitely, I think there's only like, House of Resentment's probably the only song that isn't narrative. Track 7.
Yeah, that song isn't narrative.
Every other song I think uses the word I don't know. It's like that is a weird. That's cool the way you do your analysis of that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that myself. It's like, yeah, I guess that is the way we are doing it, right? It's just sometimes the lyrics come out so fast you don't really have time to think about. You're like, well, that fits and that's really cool, and I want to say it. Let's do it.
Sometimes it's, everybody is like, I always think in a way where it's sort of like, you're going to write lyrics, and obviously if it's the same person writing lyrics or the same team of people, you're going to eventually get some type of recognizable pattern. And we've been trying so hard to kind of take these like different roads with it, and it's so sick to see. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I never thought of it. Like
Yeah.
a lot of it is really told from that perspective, but you know, I think it's because at the end of the day, it's trying to be a little bit more human of a record. And I think it's trying to just be a little bit more relatable. And I hope that when people listen to those songs, maybe the fact that it's more narrative or, you know, based on that perspective, that it can be something that's a little bit more up for a personal interpretation rather than just digesting it and being like, this is what it has to fucking be, right? This is what they said it is. It's like, motherfucker, you can listen to my song and think it's about dogs, you know, or whatever you want it to be, cats, amps, amplifiers, doors.
Yeah, we definitely didn't want to like do like a fantasy style record. Like the first record is very kind of like this fantasy
based on a story, based on,
like, we definitely wanted it to be more of a thing that was like you know, just like regular like
try shit
songs.
Shit,
just normal like pop songs, not pop, but like rock, or just any other like, I don't know. So many people do concept records in metal now, and it's just like we kind of didn't want to pressure ourselves to do that to follow up our first record. You know, it was like there was a lot of things with that where it was like a big pressure to be like, well, should we, because it was supposed to be like an album, like all right,
we don't need to get all into the fucking
but you know, it was like we kind of had a pressure to kind of continue a story, and like we're kind of like rejected it, like, no, let's just do what we feel like
place of like everybody expecting us to kind of continue in this conceptual nature, which is really heavy with the band before. And I think at the end of the day, Adrian was such a heavy part in that if we really tried to follow that up and force that, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't feel right to us as musicians. You know, it's sort of like, I don't want to say, it's not like a reinvention. It's just trying something different, you know? It's not to say we won't ever, and who fucking knows? Maybe in 7 years we write another concept record. Maybe in a month we write, you know, who knows? It's not like I'm, you know, we're trying to say like, let's not ever do that again. It's sort of just like, we did something for so long in this band. We know we can do it. We've done it. That it's sort of like, we now have an opportunity to kind of go in a direction that's sort of something that fits the happiness of all of us. And like I said, it's that drive of like, what can we do as a band? Like, how far can we take this as a band? Not just like Warforged and a bunch of motherfuckers we get to fill in. It's like, no, it's like, what can like we do as us, as people, as like something to identify ourselves with,
a current interpretation of the band, rather than like, you know, trying to base it off.
We're just trying to give, I think the intention was to try and give somebody something different than what you might get based on a band that sounds like us normally. I don't know, or something that's a little bit different for you. That's all the real intention is, I think, at the end of the day.
Warforged ain't gonna be writing about no Martians,
it's
that's
like,
for sure.
It's funny because in the past, when we did all this conceptual shit, there's a lot of people that were like, what? They do all this. And now it's like, we release these 2 songs, and then there's people that are like, why aren't they doing this? And it's like, the classic Machiavellian, I don't know what that word means, but it's the classic Machiavellian struggle of motherfuckers being mad that we changed our shit and didn't, you know. It's like it's the story of every metal band. It's the story of In Flames when they started singing on Reroute to Remain and Soundtrack to Your Escape. It's your story of Metallica after the Black Album. It's your story of, you know, it's like fans want one thing, you don't give it to them, they're like, what, this didn't meet my expectations, you know, like we didn't, like when we dropped that first Bliss Joint of the Bane, not by everybody, but there was definitely a couple cases of crucifixion, you know, of them being like, what has this band become? They're singing about being fat pieces of shit instead of
I'm a fat fucking
dark
and I'm
atmospheric
30 years old,
shit, you know. And it's like, there's all kinds of parts of life, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of aspects to life. There's room for the artsy atmospheric stuff. There's room for some tongue-in-cheek stuff. And we just want to try our shot at everything we can that's natural to us and that feels cool.
Everybody else does that. I don't know why metal is like taking, I mean, like that. Have you guys heard that band Loathe?
No.
Yeah, they had
like a metalcore band that sort of does.
Yeah, they just do whatever they want. Like they
sort of, but then
maybe not lyrically, but musically they definitely like fucking like they just bring it in all sorts. It's like, we kind of just want, I don't know why like metal has to be like this thing where it's like every song is like the same goddamn thing on every song. It's like, I want to, there's a dog barking. I want to like just like, you know, like give everyone a taste of like what all the shit that we want to like do in a record. You know, I don't know. I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't think any of us want to like be pigeonholed into a certain like to a certain like corner. You know, I don't like that
when,
shit.
When people like earlier in the interview, it's like people ask us the genre question now, and it's just like I don't even know how to touch it at this point. It's like
you like heavy music, yeah. You like extreme music, you'll like, just listen.
You like death metal bands, you like the technical kind of shit, you like I don't know, you know, it's like all this. It's you like the stuff with the cleaner production, you like us. You know, you want something like it's got the old school death metal stuff. It's not us, but
yeah. Well, you can kind of see that because although there is some consistency in your use of the first person perspective across the two releases, we can see differences in other pronominal choices. Like for instance, both albums do use like the pronoun you a bit, with 6 instances we think on the first album, but there's like 38 on the new album. So when you write lines like now you recite to yourself words from the mouth of some dead fuck, come home when you're dead, or do you think that this is all worth it, that obviously shows kind of a different perspective being adopted, right? So with that in mind, like did you have a particular kind of effect that you were trying to generate with this, or like a specific person or group of people that you were targeting with this use of you?
It's funny that you say that, because yes, I would say yes and no. In certain instances, there's definitely like at the end of Sheridan Road, one of the lyrics is, "Are we really one and the same?" And that part of the song is sort of about it's sort of about thinking about your place in the universe. Where are you in the universe? Who are you? What are you compared to everything else that's out there in this big mass of existence? And I think I kind of liked it. It's written in a sense where it's like you're sitting in a car next to your, whoever, your best friend, saying like, are we really the same as this shit? Are we really the same as like that? Are we, it's like written in that context, but it's also kind of got this double meaning of like, oh, I kind of want it to be maybe one of those lyrics some people will think about and kind of have more open to interpretation, because it does make you think when you're not having a direct subject matter as far as the you or the I think it kind of leaves that more open, as opposed to a song like No Land Man, which is much more of a storytelling song of like, that it's, I feel like No Land Man it has that like first album vibe in a sense where it's very like there is actions that happen here that lead to a certain thing, as opposed to more of like, oh, this line can mean multiple. It's like when you read a book at different parts in your life or something like that, it could apply to different situations. And I think kind of leaving it more open-ended like that kind of opens that door up to more people to be able to read the lyrics, and it just poses more questions. Maybe it'll get people to think about them a little bit more.
So the you isn't supposed to be necessarily like a specific individual who has like a name?
Not in like in Self-Destruct Seminar, no. In Sheridan Road, no. These songs are very like, it's very it's sort of like either face value or for interpretation.
Definitely.
I would say like when we're talking about like some dead fuck in Self-Destruct Seminar, I don't think that's about one.
It's about Chaucer, dude.
I don't know who Chaucer is. I've never heard that name before today. It reminds me of Soft Serve. It rhymes with Soft Serve.
Chaucer. What's the
Canterbury Tales?
Canterbury Tales, yeah.
Canterbury Tales.
Chaucer wrote the Canterbury.
Is that like Harry Potter?
Yeah. It's just like Harry Potter, dude.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, dude.
It's they're considered basically the same book more or less.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a speed run of Canterbury Tales after this.
So I mean, I guess like this what you're doing, I get this actually kind of leads into the next question, because throughout this entire interview, actually, you guys have been quite jocular, making jokes back and forth. And it seems, to be honest, when we read your album lyrics, we both kind of thought it, like, I hope this isn't a misinterpretation, because we both found it to be funny in some parts. Not in like the haha kind of like
the old one.
The new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not in like the haha like this is a specific joke sense, but kind of in the dark humor of, say, like a song like maybe Faith No More's RV, which has that line, I'm a swinging guy, throw a rope over the shower curtain rod and swing. Because you have lines like, my organs feel like they're covered in chewed gum, or a journey filled with shit and praise. I'll be the most charming man in the universe. Just watch how everyone is laughing when I talk. Or it's like the safety in watching reruns. Today, I think I'll take a brick and throw it on the highway. Like, they seem kind of darkly bizarre and amusing. If this is your intent to be a bit silly and to have a bit of humor, what I guess is both of your take on this? Like, is introducing humor or silliness into metal challenging? Is it something that you've had pushback on, or is it just something that naturally kind of fit into the narrative that you're trying to tell?
I think it's something that's you're gonna get pushback on for sure.
Yes, to all of everything you just said.
Okay.
People have given us pushback.
Yeah.
People, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you get it. We're guys that like have senses of humor. This band, a big part of like what we wanted to do with the Grove was kind of like, it's sort of like, let's show them who the fuck we are. Let's give the world Warforged for who we are as people, for who, it's sort of like, we're band members, we're humans, like behind the music, fucking, we're people, we're 5 guys. And I think that humor is a big part in it. You look at a song like Bliss Joint of the Bing, which has a lot of humorous lyrics. It's, when you get fucked up, when you're out partying, drinking, with the people you want to be hanging out with, you're usually doing it in a good party setting. You've been to a party before. It's sort of kind of like, I feel like it kind of goes, it's like the sultry nature of drinking and getting fucked up, and like, it's like being a class act, but not being a class act. It's
yeah. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. We're all like, like we're friends.
We're
We're all friends before
we're
like band members. Like we're all like,
and it's like
we all feel comfortable with each other to like say certain shit around each other. Like
it's humor in a different way too. Like we're not the type of band that like, we're not the guys that think it's funny to do like a banjo cover of a song that's too fast and it just sounds stupid. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not just trying to like,
let's cover Bruno Mars.
It's like, we're not trying to patronize
shit. Yeah.
We're not trying to come from this humorous aspect to patronize it. We're coming at it with an angle to kind of make it more human, to make it more like, oh yeah, okay, this is an emotion that people feel, and it's like all these motherfuckers are singing about it. I feel like when you come from music in a one-dimensional aspect and you're going for just something dark or just something evil, you end up with something that just gets so oversaturated with one emotion as opposed to something that, ranges all over the board. So you got a song like with some humor in it, like Bliss Joint of the Bane. And then, a line like, it's like watching, it's like watching, what was the rerun?
It's like watching Bud Dwyer.
The rerun line?
Repeat.
It's like the safety in watching reruns. Oh yeah, even though you have the Bud Dwyer on repeat, that line, that was
I was thinking of the one you said. Alex was wrong.
Yeah.
Like for that example, I have like, there might be some humor in that, but I didn't write it with the intention of humor. Like that whole song is a very personal song. The last song, Painted Heart. For me, I wrote the lyrics to that one, and that line, it's like the safety in watching reruns is sort of like, I wrote that in a perspective of like, you get home, there's so many, I feel like there's such a human instinct these days in people where it's like, you get up, you go to work, you come home, you pop on your favorite it's like everybody that watches The Office, everybody that like finds the comfort in the shit that they know and the shit that's their day to day, their every life, the things that make them feel safe, the things that make you feel like my life is stable because I'm doing this one thing I always do. So that's an indicator of stability. But it's interesting that you find the humor in that line, because that might not be the purpose of it. But I love that somebody is able to get something like that out of it, because it is kind of like, yeah, there is safety in watching reruns, but it's like, who wants to fucking watch reruns? Give me something new. But then you have me that's like, oh, I watched The Sopranos 6 times. It's like, what am I feeding into my own bullshit? But I am. That's the best part of it. And
I definitely remember
sing about it.
I definitely remember thinking that lyric was weird when you showed it to. I don't know. I thought I think the word rerun just like
right. It's not a metal word.
Yeah.
But
no.
In
my head, I think of cereal and like cartoons when I hear the word rerun.
And that's the idea. It's like you think of things that aren't dangerous to you. You're thinking of a word it's not a word that's like destruction or whatever the fuck. It's something that you wouldn't see in a metal song. And it's
so
like,
you're definitely both aware that like some of these phrasings are a bit like not, I guess, what you'd a stereotype of metal, right? That like this kind of, I mean, it kind of has like a Bukowskian kind of
Yeah, it was a concerted effort for sure. Yes,
for
Okay.
sure. It's a bit of a concerted effort. I mean, I mean, it's just the idea of pushing it outside of that box.
Well, yeah,
Like,
lyrically,
what can we convey without it being overtly metal?
Right.
So is
lyrically, me and Jason are on the same page a lot with that shit. Where like we listen to a lot of non-metal stuff that has lyrics like that, where like it's a little more like honest. It's not like very like thesaurus-y kind of lyrics where like you try to pick out like big words to like make it sound more evil or something. It's like we both had that kind of like understanding with each other when we were writing lyrics and this shit. Like we were gonna like do something that was a little more
We didn't
down
want
to
to
earth.
do that type of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Well, we did want to ask you about some other kind of major themes that we noticed off the new album.
Let's do it.
One is a kind of back and forth between images of cars and houses. So for cars,
Right.
No Land Man states, "I'm the headache from inhaling exhaust fumes heated like a radiator," and Sheridan Road lists actual street names in the lyrics. And houses appear in lines like "reupholstered and refinished with the fresh coat of mace," "on him of broken teeth." And the song "House of Resentment" is unsurprisingly built entirely around the metaphor of house. Is this all chance, or is there something on this record about this sort of like domestic lifestyle or context, perhaps the kind of stereotypical emblems of American success, like the house and the
That's my
car?
shit right there. I was definitely going for like more of a domesticism feel to metal because it's something I feel like isn't as it's so, man, this is so fucking fun to talk about. It's insane.
That's
though,
a great question.
to hear those references, because there's a lot of that shit where it's like, oh man, like the car leaking in there. Oh hell yeah, and we'll get into that right now. But it's basically it's like, you know, a lot of this record was written in 2021, which was headlong into the pandemic.
Sure.
So a lot of my time in the pandemic was spent driving because I wasn't going to work every day. Me and Alex live in Chicago proper. We live downtown, you know, in the city, where we would take public transportation to our jobs. We would take the Chicago CTA trains to work, take the bus, and we stopped doing that every day. So I started driving a lot more and driving longer distances. I mean, there was like Sheridan Road, for example, that whole song is a stream of conscious about a drive. It's about getting baked as fuck and getting in your car and going on a sick ass cruise, and just kind of like what that was like for me is sort of the angle of that song was written. But when you look at a song like Hymn of Broken Teeth and you're talking about the line "reupholstered and refinished with a fresh coat of mace," like that wasn't written specifically to be, that was actually inspired by furniture restoration, because I have a good friend that does furniture restoration for a living. But that song in a sense is sort of about, which we'll get into it at another time more, I'm sure. But I'm very interested to see what the public thinks about that song, because that's like our first diss track. And it's a diss track at nobody in particular. It's just it's a diss track at people who write music who don't do it in a way. It's supposed to be sort of about the type of music that you see that's not about the artistic value of it, but just sort of to make a product. And it's sort of a song that highlights like, you just do the same motherfucking shit just because you want to give people a product, as opposed to like writing something that's more fulfilling or more creatively engaging. As like, you know, and you see it, metal is like the perfect example of like putting your heart on your sleeve and going out there and writing about, you know, topics that you're not going to see in something like in Glee or whatever. Glee. How old is that? How
great?
bad
Yeah,
is
great. That was sick.
Shit ass reference. Old ass motherfucking reference. That show has been on for what, like 10 years?
Yeah, I think everyone on that
27
show's dead now, dude.
That's not true.
I don't think that's true.
Definitely
No.
not dead. But you know what I mean?
One guy died.
It's sort of like that's my point, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Was that a decent or
Yeah.
Oh, they were talking about like domestic, like houses and cars and
the
stuff.
house, the houses thing. It's sort of like the street name Sheridan Road. Like I said, it's inspired by an actual drive. Sheridan Road is a street in Chicago, linked to the famous, now I don't even know what it's currently called,
Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Drive.
Wow. Yep. Which was formerly
He's the guy who
founded.
He's the guy who founded Chicago, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and Lakeshore Drive, which is formerly Lakeshore Drive, which is one of the more infamous streets in Chicago that runs along Lake Michigan. You go along the entire coast of the city, and you could actually take that street, which turns into Sheridan Road, all the way up north to Wisconsin, and even then some. And it's very close to where I live. and it was a road I would take all the time. It was like my standard drive. I was like, I'm going for a drive because I'm fucking bored of being in my apartment because there's nowhere else to go during a lockdown. So yeah, those street names are real streets when you're driving north down Sheridan. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm finally getting to like write something a little bit real, it's like I'm using real street names. This is real shit. This is about a real place. Like, there was something about it that just felt so exciting to me and so unique, because I feel like it's not a lot of things you see in metal.
Including geography in a song has always been like a sick thing. We thought that was kind of a cool idea. That was definitely a concerted. Like, it was like a
including something like
decided.
From Home. It's like that feels like home to me. And
well, there's also the whole concept of like driving, as far as like you and Max had the concept of like having a record
was trying to write an album that would be sick to listen to in your car. It's like an album, and what I mean by that, it's like an album that you don't necessarily have to listen to from beginning to end. It's sort of like you could pop it on, pick out your favorite songs. Like the idea of the Grove is that while of course we have a track listing, ideally you could listen to it any way you want. Start from the middle, start from the end, start from the beginning. Like, the songs don't connect, and we want them to be individually digestible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was very early on in the record. That was like a very
and I
important
think,
concept.
Kind of the idea of of driving leaked itself into that.
That's surprising. I'm gonna jump ahead here, and then we'll come back to the theme question, because that surprises me a little bit what you just said there. That the album could be listened to anyway, because we thought that, kind of listening through it, especially Painted Heart, the final song of the album, was quite distinct in a lot of ways that made us feel like it was supposed to end the album. Like, it was supposed to be the final song you listen to, because you have lines like we'll talk about, we'll go back again, we're going out of order here, but the other songs of the album are sort of angry in a lot of ways, the emotion in there. And then this final song has lines like, my arms grow out like willow branches, I want your forgiveness, I'm speaking in tongues, that talk about like nature and a chance of redemption that the I'm a fat fucking mess lyric kind of doesn't. There's not a single swear word on the entire song, and it asks questions like, do you think that I think this is all worth it? Will a sense of change ever come? Do we spend our time waiting for one? Which you don't use these kind of rhetorical questions on any other tracks. And then it ends with this declaration that you've been ready for this from day one, and that your hearts are, quote, not poisoned, not blind. Could you listen to the song any place in the album? Or because we really felt that it was kind of a way of actually questioning everything else in the album.
That song is about my relationship as a friend with our former bandmate Adrian, who we've talked about previously. I wrote that song about him leaving the band. It's a very personal song to me, which I'm totally cool about talking with. But a lot of, like, when we initially wrote that track, like, musically, Alex wrote it. And it had gone through a few changes.
Yeah, it was one major change for sure.
It went through a few changes, and it wasn't going to, we didn't write it to be the last song. It ended up shaping itself to be the bookend. So I guess in a way, the first song and the last song on the records are very much meant to be a ballsy opener and like a big closer. Right. So I guess that is a good way to put it. But emotionally speaking, that song is sort of like, when you look at a song like Painted Heart, it's actually, Easter eggs have kind of been a big thing in Warforged's past. Connections, musically, lyrically, whatever it happened to be. Painted Heart is kind of a reflection off of the last song on our EP Essence of the Land, which is called Tainted Heart, which was a song that we had always talked about trying to repurpose live, but nobody really wanted to do it.
It's like an acoustic outro kind of thing.
It was kind of like weird. It was sort of like a song that was an afterthought when it was written. At the time being, but we had always talked about incorporating it into the band, but just couldn't think of a way how. So when it came to hearing the song, and I had kind of wanted to write a song that embodied a little bit more of the vibe of our lyrics on our EP Essence of the Land, as opposed to the record Voice, because while there are a lot of connections, there's definitely some differences that I think didn't carry over from Essence to Voice, that I kind of like to be like, oh, you know what? Let's inject a little bit of our past into this. So it's kind of like a song that serves as like, hey, if you've been along the ride for the band so far, you know, this is kind of a little treat because we got a bunch of shit that ties in to our past discography. But at the same time, yeah, it's interesting because it's not an angry, there are some anger undertones to it, I would say, but more in a theme of frustration and ultimately it being a song about our band. I mean, that song is basically about the story of our band during the pandemic of not working and then all of a sudden working a lot and kind of that feeling of stagnation of not knowing where your future is going to be and the fear that kind of comes with that and wanting to kind of just grab the bull by the horns when you have the opportunity to and doing so. It's just it's so crazy talking about this fucking song. Because I've like listened to it so many times now, but it's still not even out to the public. Like as of right now, when we're recording this, it's
a good song
right now. Thank you.
I liked it.
I'm glad you dig it, and it's definitely different it's another different song, very big melodic one with some singing in it. And I had known that I wanted to write a song about that, about my experience with Adrian, because I had known it was so fresh at the time, and it was such a big event that sort of happened in my life and with the history of the band. I mean, Adrian and I were the last original member. I'm like the last original member. Alex is the next standing guy now in the band. I mean, the next longest standing dude that's been in Warforged since almost since the inception.
Yeah, like
a little bit after
9 months, 10 months, something like that.
But
yeah,
it was definitely that song was definitely a big.
Well, yeah, and we never thought that Adrian would leave I mean, he was kind of the band in our eyes for what it's like. It was like a lot of what we did was his vision, and it was like we never expected him to leave, and like that was a big shock. I mean, I took it as a way of, I was like, I love writing songs and stuff. When he left, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna write all these fucking songs. No, I was excited, but everyone else, like, I mean, Jason had a way fucking different.
It was a lot different for me.
For that, yeah, he had different emotions about that, but you know, it's
time.
like, but it was still like we all had that understanding that like he probably never was going to leave the band. It was kind of his shit.
It was a very it was just a big change for our band, and it was something that I guess none of us had initially ever thought about or planned for. It's one of those things where it's like you don't plan for shit like that to happen, but you know, this record is sort of about us embodying who we are as a band, because I think a lot of us, you know, Adrian did write a lot of the music previously. He had a very heavy hand in the creative aspect of the band. A lot of it was his control. And I think the Grove is kind of a representation of that control being dispersed back to the band and sort of just like, hey, who are we? You know, Adrian's not here anymore, but we're still a band. You know, we're still guys that have been playing music together.
We're still all friends.
You know,
we didn't.
It's like we're a family, and
I don't think it ever crossed our mind to like break up. We were kind of just like, well, where do we go from here?
Yeah,
we'll just keep going, I guess. Like,
so
stop, you know.
Yeah, we don't want to. I mean, this is
changing
the most
our name
success we've ever had in a band, and like, you know, I don't know. I firmly believe it's like, you know, there's people that have been on the internet that have heard our new songs that are like, yeah, they should have changed their name. And you know what? Fuck it, we're not.
Yeah,
we worked our asses off to get to where we are. We're still working our asses off to get to better places. You know, sorry,
your name for 2
if you don't
days,
like it, you don't have to fucking listen to it. And it's just sort of like, you know, you get what you're gonna get with us at this point. And I think I would hope, and I mean, at least from this point here on, now that this album's coming out, once it's said and done, I hope it then leads to more people being like, you know what, maybe I'll approach Warforged with no expectations, because I don't know what the fuck to expect.
Yeah,
and that's sort of kind of where I at least where I want people to be at. I want people to not know what our next move is going to be. You know, this is such a it's definitely a contrast from the first record musically and lyrically, as we've been discussing. And you know, even the stuff we're working on now, I feel is a contrast of some of the stuff you're hearing on the record that drops in a month.
Yes.
And it's exciting. It just makes it so much more. It's like, if you're doing this to the degree that, you know, we're in our 30s as a band. Most of us, not all of us, most of us are fucking broke. We play a style of music that it doesn't get a lot of play in places where music does. I mean, now we're living in a world where the music industry almost feels like it doesn't exist in certain aspects. Oh shit, did my mic cut out?
No, it's good.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. And you know, when you put so much work and time and money into something as an adult that you've been working on for so long, it's like, you better fucking love what you're doing. And it's like, if you're writing some shit that you don't like if you're doing some shit that you don't want to be doing, like,
yeah, right.
why are you putting in all this work? You're putting in so much work into something that is such a big machine and such a big entity. It's like being in a band it's a lot of work, especially if you want, if you want to be in a touring band or, really be in a band that gets some notoriety. Like, you got to be loving what you're doing, because if you're not,
Sure,
it might make those things a lot worse.
100%.
At least the harder part's a lot harder.
yeah.
Well, going back to like some of your major themes, like the other theme that we did see, kind of links in with this discussion of nature that we mentioned a bit earlier, was themes of fire, smoke, or heat. So No Land Man mentions steam boiling and a temperature of over 100 degrees.
Right.
Hymn of Broken Teeth and Sheridan Road mentions smoking cigarettes. Bliss Joined to the Bane opens with blinding light brazenly burns a hole through my eyelids. Burning Days is, well, called Burning Days.
Burned,
The Place That Breaks Your Bones mentions a suit, the shade volcanic, outer husk covered in ashes, cotton dressed of red molten chrysalis. So what makes you keep returning to this theme of fire or heat?
Oh man.
Jeez, man, that might not have been something we were consciously aware of, at least not me.
I'll give it to you. Most of those lyrics that you just said, I wrote a handful of them. The first, that No Land Man, the parts that are sort of about hate, there's a whole passage that's about comparing human hate to doing fucked up shit and then to a car. There's a whole verse, the one that you're talking about, like with the steam and like it's a song essentially about anger, but like trying to turn it into metaphors in a way of like there's a whole the verse after Jordan from Distant Tombs. Tim does this we have an effect on his vocal, and it's more of like it's under this acoustic part of the song, but it's like, I'm the engine of hate, blah 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 blah. It's basically describing like as like your hatred being fueled like a fucking car, and just like a truck, and just being like, fuck you motherfuckers, I'm going straight into it. And I mean, the end of that song is about the character, the No Land Man, driving his car and getting into a giant car wreck and like getting ejected from his seat. And like the last part of the song is about right before the dude like dies, essentially the last minutes of his life are peace, because he's caused so much chaos and destruction that he feels an inner peace within himself as in this like nightmare of a scene. And when it came to the other lyrics you would mention in The Place That Breaks Your Bones about the like the black soot and whatnot, I had written that song. That's the song that I had talked about. So it's kind of like two big things influenced that song. The Sopranos. That very same
of course.
Yeah, got it.
Same day I wrote that was, so I merged like my idea of that love I was talking about before with some visual aspects of something that our guitar player Jace had been telling me. So this was like the summer of 2021. It was our guitar player Jace has some family that live in Hawaii, and he had just flown out to visit them, and he came back, and I hadn't seen him since he come back. So me and him got fucked up at the beach in Chicago by my apartment, and I was getting pretty high, he was getting pretty drunk, and he was telling me about this crazy black sand beach that he had visited in Hawaii, and was just describing it to me, and I was so baked and just taking it. It sounded like the way Jace did a really good job of describing it, and like the way he was telling me it like took me there. I was like, fuck, I could like visualize this. And like, I hadn't had anybody tell me anything like that in a really long time. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like, damn, that's really cool. Like, I really got a very cool, like visual representation of that. And I was like, that's it. So weed, home, laptop, Sopranos, Hawaii Story, bam, Place That Breaks Your Bones. I had it done in like 2 days after that. Like, I wrote the bulk of that song after we had gotten home from the beach, because this wave of inspiration just hit me, because there's a scene in The Dream Tony has with this woman, and he's wearing this really it's a beautiful suit. It's like a big gray suit, like a striped gray suit with, it's like a a muted dark orange color, like undershirt and tie, and it looks like, you know, like the outside of a volcano. You open it inside and you get that warm lava color. And I'm like, shit, that's really cool. And it's like, probably wouldn't have been thinking about that if I wasn't smoking a joint, but you know, I am. Here we are. The idea's there. Let's run with it. So I kind of got a little more poetic with it and merged those aspects together. And it was just crazy how it worked like that. It was just so. That's another one of those songs I wrote before. I didn't write the lyrics to the song. I wrote the lyrics on their own. I didn't even that was at a point where we were literally just writing lyrics just to have. And we actually took the lyrics and fit them into the song. I gave the lyrics to Alex, to which then he found the room and
there's a few songs on the album like that where we just kind of Jason would kind of like free write some shit, and then like I'd give it to figure Alex out what a chorus would be, what a verse would be, stuff like that, and it just kind of fit it in, you know, because I demo all the vocals and stuff, so like I was kind of like, that was my duty, was to be like, all right, I'm gonna fuck with this. And like, I think that was like the first one we did.
It was that, and then Sheridan.
Yeah, because those two songs, I was like really surprised how well it fit. I was like, because I was nervous. I was like, oh fuck, like he wrote all this stuff and I didn't know how I was gonna fit it. And then it happened. I was like, oh, that actually fit really well, you know. And it was awesome. It was great.
Burning Days, you brought up that song. Yeah, that's one of the few that Alex and I wrote together. We both wrote
that over Messenger.
And Alex had that song, and he had a couple lyrics for it that were really sick, but he was like stumped on them, and he was trying to think of some stuff for some parts, so he sent it to me. And there was this theme, you know, the demo was called Burning Days. That's another one of the, I think that and No Land Man are the only titles we kept from the initial titles, like from the demo titles.
When you write a song, you save it as some dumb bullshit line, and
like you had the first verse to that song, which has lines about suffocating on fumes,
and then the chorus, I think.
So there's kind of like this fire theme going as it was to Burning Days, and it was kind of like. I wrote these lyrics that sort of brought in this allegory of like wasting your money and wasting your time as like burning your money and burning your, you know, just like burning your fucking life away. And I at that point was like, this is cool. We got these fire metaphors going. Why don't I try a little bit more things, you know, like the Wicker Man that's where I got that lyric about the Wicker Man on display. You could count on my pockets being lined with ash. It's about being a broke ass motherfucker. That's literally what that line's about. It's about when you want to go out and ball out and you're like, oh yeah, I have $5 in my pocket, or it's like, oh yeah, I have to wait 2 more days because I only have X amount of money in my bank account. You know, it's like it's just doing stupid shit with your money.
Feeling like you fucked up your life and you don't have.
But it sounds cooler, you know, when you put it in the euphemism of like a Wicker Man, because it's like what is this, that movie with Nick Cage where he's fucking punching motherfuckers, or the OG with Christopher Lee,
right?
Which is a great film.
These repeated references to fire then that keep coming up, you feel like they all kind of had individual motives? It wasn't like an attempt to have sort of a theme for the album? Okay.
No, 100%. They 100% had individual motives. It's cool hearing about these like themes that are present throughout the record, because it's like we wrote a lot of these songs, you know, in a very similar, you know, in a similar timeline. So it makes sense that there's themes that are kind of intertwining here, but it's because like, I don't know, Alex and I, our heads like look at these songs in such a way that once you start to hear other people talk about them, it's really interesting, because that's shit like we didn't pick up on that, or the I and you stuff. Like I didn't pick up on that either.
Yeah, man, I figured that makes more sense, because I figured it was more narrative than the last.
Because like the fire metaphors, the only time it was really intentional was Burning Days. Was that
right?
That's like where those lyrics
title.
I was trying to get more lyrics in that kind of theme, and it makes it easier when you're writing with another person to kind of have a central theme, because then you guys are
agree on the
writing more towards
that was what was so hard
makes more sense.
So hard about
you get two lines that you could get lines that fit one theme.
So we were trying to write No Land Man. We couldn't even agree on like what the theme was. We were kind of like, and then you just kind of settled on something. And it was like, all right.
Well, Alex wrote a bunch of shit, and then he was like, and then I wrote some stuff, and I was like,
it was a pain in the ass.
I have them too. I
got them all too. But yeah, it was interesting because like we could not agree on a theme for No Land Man, and then Jason just all of a sudden he was like, "This is what it's about." Like, we kind of leaned into this destructive thing with it, and it works a lot better. It's a heavy,
dark song,
right?
It's one of like,
and it's the intro. You want to come out kicking ass, you know?
Yeah, it's like, it's so funny because I feel like everybody would have expected us to make that the first single on the album, and it's like, nope, we're not gonna release it before it comes out.
Eclectic singles is the way to go.
It's sort of, we go for like the songs that we know people are gonna be like, what are you guys, a fucking deathcore band now? Like that's where we're at right now. Not exactly. We put out Bliss Joint of the Bane. People on Reddit were like, they're a deathcore band now, fuck them. And then we put out Sheridan Road, and then people were like, this song is really good, but I don't like it, fuck them. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense.
We actually got a good response to that song.
Yeah, it's very weird.
People did actually kind of like that one more than the first song.
And I knew that was going to be the case, and that's fine. But it's like, we got plans. We have meaning behind all this. There's reasons why we do this stuff the way we do it. So.
Okay. Well, this next question, our final sort of theme we noticed might also just be kind of individual song based, but I guess like looking at the album as a whole, we kind of felt that there's a combined theme of sort of anger and self-contempt that runs throughout. Like anger in metal albums is obviously not an uncommon emotion, whatever, but the anger on this album often feels kind of like futile or miserable, like when the protagonist or singer describes themselves as dull and alone, fear-ridden, worry-prone, lost and empty, vaguely self-destructive, or says, I've let years of my life burn up in smoke, but there's time ahead before the breakdown starts. Was kind of anger, especially sort of kind of an impotent or like frustrated anger, a theme that you kind of came to this album with, or is it just something that sort of came up track to track, like the Fire theme?
Yeah, it might be a track to track type. I don't know. Like I mean, I wrote both those lines, and like I just feel like that's kind of the way I approach a lot of shit in life. I feel like a lot of times certain like emotions, especially like strong emotions like anger and stuff, can feel futile. I mean, especially like during like 2020, 2021, like sometimes you're just like sitting alone and you're like, I don't even know what the fuck I can even like feel valid in thinking. So like sometimes it does feel that way, like especially with those two lines you just said, like those are very much like that kind of a thing where it's like I don't even know like what I can feel about this anger. It's just kind of like it feels futile for sure. Like a lot of emotions, I don't know, I have a certain way of regulating my own emotions where I kind of try to make fun of myself or try to invalidate certain emotions that might feel strong, that might like kind of knock me off my normal way of living if I lean into them, and that's kind of what that is.
I think
definitely
when I hear that lyric in Bliss Joint of the Bane, like the fear-ridden, worry-prone lyric, it like my way of internalizing it is sort of like when I look at it, I see it as a line of like, it's sort of saying, it's like, well, we use our vices as vices, but one of the main reasons we use our vices is because they relieve anxiety, they relieve fears, they relieve, so that line speaks to me. It's like, oh, this dude is getting fucked up because it's going to make him less anxious and more down to just, loosen up and like, it's like what to do. What's the line? What to do, dull and alone, fear-ridden, and worry-prone. It's like, yeah, you know what I do when I fucking am worrying like a maniac? I smoke weed. It's like, but that's a vice. It's like I'm using a substance to quell, an anxiety.
Yeah, you don't want to lean into that fear. Like, you don't want to lean into that anger or that fear. So you kind of just
the anger theme that you're talking about. It definitely wasn't there from the get-go, but it was clearly there by the end of it. It was sort of like we'd never really. I felt like, at least previously with our band, we never really touched on that emotion, like anger. And I feel like in death metal, anger is a common emotion, but it's portrayed in such in a lot of very narrow-lined ways.
Violent way or something.
Yeah, violent. Yeah, kill motherfucker. And we have violence. No Land Man is a very violent song. Probably the most violent song we have as far as this band goes, which was even a weird one to write because I wrote it from this perspective, and it's sort of like there was parts where I was writing that song and I was like, fuck, like, I had to take myself back and be like, all right, this is for the song. This is not like necessarily how I might directly feel, but this is how the song is kind of going in the direction. It's a very angry song. And, I think the anger pops up, but it's anger for different things in different ways. And I really think a lot of it popped up like because of the place we were in writing that record. We had just gone from being in a touring band to the pandemic knocking that shit away and crushing our first record cycle essentially. And there's a lot of aggression built up with certain things like that. And then writing a more angry record, coming at emotions at least more in an angry, it's like I feel like this record is angry in different ways. Like Hymn of Broken Teeth is an angry song about the music industry. No Land Man is an angry song about what it feels like before you're going to snap. Self-Destruct Seminar is an angry song about people who think they know what's best for you. It's like there is anger as a common theme, and I feel like a lot of it comes from that feeling of no control. Because when that pandemic hit, it just took that rug from underneath us, where it's just like we have no control over our situation at this point. And especially really early on, because it's like nobody knew about the virus, nobody knew what to do, nobody knew how to acclimate to it. I mean, it was a whole fucking up and change, and that's a scary thing for a lot of people and for the world. And it creates a lot of not having control. I feel like creates a lot of anger for people when you're not in control of your situation. Sometimes.
Well, at the beginning of this interview, you mentioned the potential lyrics to be therapeutic. Does that come back in here?
In a way, yeah. I think that the lyrics are more therapeutic in a sense of like, like a song like No Land Man for me was therapeutic in a way where it's like, okay, I'm getting a feeling out that I felt before, but in a way that like, that could be more like it's more accessible in a story format. So it's sort of like, it felt like it was therapeutic in a sense of like, I'm writing a song about anger, but it's sort of one of those songs where it's like, it has a very destructive end to it. Whereas the album touches on anger, I would say, but in a lot of different ways, and maybe in even more ways where it's a little bit more manageable and a little bit more understandable as to like, like a song like when I look at a song like Painted Heart, it's a song that's about confusion, longing and wanting to belong, and then about persevering. And you look at a song like No Land Man, which is about complete self-destruction, as opposed to a song like Painted Heart, which is about rebuilding. It's sort of like, I feel like in a way it was therapeutic for me, because it went from like, the whole thing was therapeutic for me because I didn't know where the fuck we were going to be as a band when Adrian had left, to then us finishing an entire record on our own, which was something that, I think all of us were very, very skeptical on how we would do it, but we did it. And I love what we came up with.
The whole thing done in less than a year, and fucking, it all felt good. Like, just therapeutic in a way that like Jason said, where it's like you get the shit out, man. Like, it's not even that, like, it's not even that I didn't think it was there, like it was a big like breakthrough, that it was like, oh wow, I can't believe I think that. It's like, it's just good to say
like
it.
we live in a world now where a lot of art is self-deprecating, and I think we also live in a world now where there's a lot of people that look at that self-deprecating art and they're like, artists shouldn't be, it's like art. Like I know there's people out there that say stuff where they're like, oh, it's the artist's responsibility to handle, like, and it's like, what? Like, that's where I stop, where I'm like, okay, as far as I know, as an artist, it's my responsibility to be a musician and an artist. I didn't know it was my responsibility to be somebody else's therapist. Right. It's like our music is therapy for us. This record is therapy for us. It's us. It's Warforged. Yeah. It's us.
And if it hits you or misses you, fucking take it for what it is.
Yeah.
We're not responsible for your feelings.
That's something to relate to. I think it's great, but I think that there's a stigma on these bands in a way where it's like, sometimes people are like, well, if the band is going to sing about something self-destructive or self-deprecating, they should then be responsible enough to lyrically correct that or show the correct behavior to that. But it's like, no, like, like make me, it's like, I'm sure I'll tell you what it is. What do I do? Like, I'm a fucking therapist, it's like, I have a therapist to be my therapist.
Mm.
Like if I went to Alex for therapy, I don't even know if I'd be
You'd
alive.
be dead,
But
bro. I'd fucking I'd see to it, bro.
It's like, you know, it's like this record, it's like we're not trying to put out a record that solves everybody's problems.
No.
It's like we made this record, like this was the record that we needed to make for us.
This kind of links to the question that we have at the end here, which is what do you think is the role of language in Warforged as like an art form, or more broadly in the genre of extreme metal itself?
I hope the language of Warforged, like to the context of metal itself, I just hope it's a different take on it. That's all I hope, is that I want it to be, or at least I hope our language is something that you won't expect from another band, and it's something that you'll only get by listening to us, which obviously it's like, how many metal bands are there in the world? Billions. Let's go on Metal Archives and then let's start looking at like the bands that, it's like, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not grammatical geniuses. I just want our music to make you think about something different at the end of the day. And I hope the language of Warforged just makes somebody think something different than they would have been thinking of then maybe what they would think of listening to their other favorite metal bands or the metal bands that they're used to hearing. I hope it's
just doing something honest.
We just hope the language is honest, and we hope the
100%.
honesty provides uniqueness in a way. It's like uniqueness and honesty is the approach.
That's all you can hope for, I think, in general as an artist. It's like I think like your goal is to be like as like true to what you think is good as possible, like as true to like what you think is like a sick song or sick lyrics. Like I think that's the most important thing, is just making sure that you're being as honest with yourself to like what you're writing. And I hope that, I think that we achieved that with this record. I think that like in this time period of our band and our lives, like we did something that was like what we want to do. And like I don't think you can ask anything from any band, like you can't ask anything more from them. Like I think like you should only expect that from a band. Like you shouldn't expect them to sound like their last record. You shouldn't expect them to sound like some other band you like. It's like, just do what you do what you want to do. And that sounds like cliche, but it's honestly like just like writing music.
Metal,
that's what it is.
It's like that's what metal was about.
100%. Yeah,
different. And we're just gonna try to keep that train going, where it's sort of like, hey, we love metal, of course, but we want to give you something different with metal. And
that's kind of that's just kind of the conundrum, right? With a genre like metal, you try to do something different, and then once you start doing something different, then you have a new thing that isn't different. So you have to do something different to what's different.
Else wanting to do.
And then you end up like, how do you do something different to something different to something different without
right?
You end up like
it's like, how do you go from writing a super dark concept record to not? It's the same. It's the same ideology.
Without going back to what avoiding the darkness without going back to the very thing that metal was trying to react against. It creates it's tricky, right? It puts you in a weird place.
I think the answer to that is to try to not like worry about the things that make it different, or just do what you want to do. If you want to fucking write a Tears for Fears part, like just do it. Who gives a shit? It's like, I don't know. It's just like, I think like trying to react to like I think being different is only good if it comes naturally. Or trying to like do that. It's like it's only sick if it comes like from a place of like just sincerity, because otherwise it's like, if you're trying to be different for the sake of being different, it's like, well, just whatever. You're
just ends up being obvious that that's what it is.
Gonna get fucking Mr. Bungle, dude. Shots fired.
Oh, that is we're gonna. That's it. This interview's over. I love Mr. Bungle. This is we're getting into tested territory here.
I get a lot of critique on, not critique, but like people always tell me my vocals on the record, the clean vocals sound like Mike Patton, and I don't get it. So
I don't think that at all.
I want to fire.
Really?
I want to fire some.
Yeah,
shots.
we get that a lot. We've gotten that from a bunch of people.
Yeah,
he sounds like Mike Patton.
That didn't.
I'm a huge Mike Patton fanboy, but like I've listened to I think every major album he's put out, and I did not get any Mike Patton vibes from your vocals.
What vibes do you get from his voice?
Well, I didn't know it was him. That's like that was something uncovered at the beginning of the interview. I was just surprised that you guys had clean vocals. I was kind of just like, oh, okay. Like it took me a sec to be like, oh, okay, so this is gonna have clean vocals in the album, and like I dug it. It was it wasn't expected at all, because I listened to your first album and stuff, and there's nothing, the whole like sonic experience of this album I think is a little bit different. It's a little like the first album has that kind of wall of sound feel, if you know what I mean. Whereas this one, like, it's still got that, like, it still sounds like you guys, but it's got like a bit, it breathes a bit more. It has like a bit and then when you add that with like clean vocals, I was like, oh, okay. But I wasn't like, aha, California.
Yeah.
This is a Mr. Bungle song now. No,
Yeah.
I didn't feel like, yeah. Oh, they sound like Disco Volante here. That wasn't
Yeah.
My favorite Mike Patton thing is the Peeping Tom record.
That's a good album. Yeah.
That's a fucking awesome record, dude. That's like probably the only thing I really like by Mike Patton. I like Mike Patton, and like
you like the Dillinger.
I like Some Faith No More. I like that record, but
nod.
everything else Dillinger does I like a little more. But like, that's definitely like Peeping Tom record is so sick, dude. So good.
Yeah, him doing pop music was it was a weird thing, but I liked it.
Dude.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. When you try to, like, when an artist tries to restrict themselves in a way,
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to talk about how great Mike Patton is.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, sick. So where can people, obviously this will come out a little bit after the album releases. So people will probably already know where to get it, but just in case, where can they go to, where should they go to check it out? Where should they go to check out more Warforged?
We have, if you're looking to buy any copies of our stuff, please go to either the Artisan Era store or nightshiftmerch.com. Our new album is there. All of the merch items for our new album are there. We have some sick ass shit you can wear while you're jamming these motherfucking hard ass jams. Every streaming service, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon Music, Napster, probably even. Yeah, for real.
Napster.
We're on Napster. So
Visa.
take your pick. And then we have merch we sell ourselves through our own personal web store, which you could find links to on our various social media sites. But yeah, I would say
Spotify, YouTube.
Please pick up our shit on Artisan's website, because that helps us the most, at least as far as the records. And if you already bought that shit, then buy shit from us, our stuff. But yeah, I would say you could check it out anywhere you damn well fucking please that you listen to music.
Okay, well, we'll have at least some of those links in the description.
Warforged, all one word, not to be confused with the Brazilian one that's been inactive since 2015.
Yeah, they're a black metal band that got
so look for the Warforged that's actually making music. That's a pretty easy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's your first clue.
Look for 2022 on the YouTube on the date.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having us on.
Awesome.
This was awesome.
Yeah, good to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Lingua Brutalica. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stay tuned for our next episode. Before we leave, we just wanted to acknowledge that this podcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.